Alafia, and welcome to the Ifa blog. I always knew that in many ways there was some advantage to having been raised in an inherently non-religious atmosphere. I was a very moral household, but 70 years ago, being raised in a Jewish home was more about wanting to assimilate and be accepted into the society than it was about expressing your theoretical religious background. Actually, people often say to me, well, didn't you receive any formal training in Judaism as a child? And I reply, no, or almost none, because my brother and I were sent to Sunday school one day. I think I was probably around 8 or 9, and he was 5 years older. And when we came back, my parents asked, what did you learn? And we replied that we're not going back. And they said, why? And we said, well, it happened to come up that we have a Christmas tree. And they said that we couldn't do that. That you're not allowed to do that because you were Jewish. So we never went back. And we always had Christmas trees. Nevertheless, I think that in my journey into Ifa and my going on almost 4 decades of study, that this non-religious background has served me well. I came unburdened by baggage. And I always understood this baggage in certain, precise ways. But lately, after all these years, I have perceived that there is another, more or perhaps most pernicious problem with having been raised Christian. It's not about the simple things, about the fact that Ifa, for example, says there's no such thing as a devil. It's not about the obvious things like believing that this is a benevolent universe and that the Creator is all benevolent, as are his, her, or its attitudes towards its creations. It's something much more subtle and, as I say, much more pernicious. And it's something that I have just recognized while in the process of training our initiates, our Ifa priests here at the Ifa Foundation. And what it is, very simply, is that somewhere in the absorption, assimilation, teachings, whatever, of Christianity, people raised, at least in a semi-strict Christian home or background, begin to view the world as a battlefield. Their existence as a battle. And this expresses in their outlook, their relationships, their behavior, and of course, on a personal level, it expresses on their ability to be good diviners. It isn't all a contest. All right, that comes from, I believe, this, constant struggle between good and evil, the devil and, whatever. That's sold as a controlling mechanism and has to be based on the premise that, well, if God isn't exactly malevolent, he's in a contest to keep benevolence at the top level. But he's in a contest, and so are we. Well, it's simply not true, number one. Number two, you have to be incredibly cautious and thoughtful about things like this, because these are the areas, these are the unthought areas, these are the just kind of accepted it and never thought about it areas that can twist and turn and screw up your life in a way that's frightening. Because what you do is not only view every disagreement or every conflict as just part of this grand, never-ending battlefield of existence. But more than that, you close yourself off to the possibility of learning and teaching. We don't teach our enemies, do we? We don't even learn from our enemies. We destroy our enemies. It's the great Christian way. It has been since the Crusades. The truth is, there are things to be learned. And the Yoruba of what is now West Nigeria, who were the founders and the developers of this philosophy of Ifa, were always open to that. Indeed, many of the Orisa came from other cultures, many of their, quote, saints, if you come from the Santeria or Christian background. They were adopted from their, quote, enemies, or diverse cultures, simply because they worked. They were a good concept. They were a usable concept. And the Yoruba, therefore, included it in their philosophy. We don't do that here. It's interesting, we throw people in jail. We have the highest, so far by the highest incarceration rate of any industrialized, civilized nation in the world. Why? Well, a lot of reasons why, but one thing I can tell you is that we're not trying to teach them. We're trying to defeat them. Locking them up as a metaphor for destroying the enemy. Well, some indeed probably should be locked up. But we have to understand that they'll be unlocked, the vast majority, at some point in time. And if we don't try and teach, that's the result of this kind of unexamined, accepted worldview, that ours is a lifetime of constant conflict, constantly having to choose between good and evil. No gray area, nothing to be learned, no redeeming factors, and apparently nothing to teach, except our way. Well, that's not what Ifa is about. You want to be a good Ifa priest, you want to be a good Ifa practitioner, you want to have an empowered, fulfilled, joyful life, you got to get rid of that nonsense. Because Ifa teaches and knows that this is a benevolent world, that this is a world where all the questions and all the answers are presented to you. They're here. You have to learn to ask the right questions and look for the right answers. And equally important, you have to wake up in the morning not looking for the latest battle, the latest struggle, the latest conflict, or the latest individual out to get you or yours. It's a great world. It really is. If you feel that, if you get it, if you observe it in the example of what this creation is, you'll project that energy and you will eliminate 80% of the conflicts. Moreover, you'll be able to learn how to deal properly with the 20% that remain. Until next time, love and blessings.